Comparison is not only normal, it's actually human nature. We love to ask ourselves questions like, who wore it better? Or should you save or splurge? And I don't know about you guys, but sometimes those voices swirling around in my head can get pretty loud. Today, we're going to get real and talk about comparison in the content creation space, why it's normal, and 4 ways that you can move past it. If you're new here, I'm a fashion and beauty micro-influencer based in New York City, and I use this channel to help you create great content, grow your digital brand, and earn sustainable income from content creation. So if any of that interests you, please consider subscribing. It's honestly been an interesting few years to be a content creator, with so many new content creators joining the space thanks to the rise of short form video. Honestly, I feel like I've been comparing myself a lot lately, and I do feel like the reason for that is because we've had so many new content creators joining the space. It's just so often that I'll open my app and I'll see creators who have been doing this for way less time than I have, who are just surpassing me in terms of follower count, in terms of engagement, opportunities, and overall earnings. More often than not now, when I meet a new content creator, I'll say, oh, how long have you been a content creator? Like, how many years have you been creating? And they'll say, you know, I kind of started creating during the pandemic and kind of just kept going from there. And I'll look at their account and they have like 2 million followers. And then they're like, oh, how long have you been doing this? I'm like, oh, just 10 years, it's fine. With the rise of TikTok and more creators joining the platform in 2020 and 2021, a few things happened. First, obviously, we had the pandemic that meant more people were at home with more time on their hands. So more people kind of fell into content creation because they were posting content to TikTok and its loose algorithm was distributing it to way more people than those creators probably ever initially imagined. Not only that, but creating a video in TikTok was so easy. The fact that it could all be done on your phone, it just meant that there was a lower barrier to entry to start creating content. Unlike the early days of blogging when you had to have some kind of understanding of coding, how a website worked, or with YouTube where people were shooting on their DSLR cameras. And this just really democratized the entire content creation process and industry to open it up so that way more people could participate in it and start from the bottom and grow their audience and also grow their skill set over time. I am obviously so excited that new creators are joining the industry every single day, and seeing the industry growth overall has been kind of mind-blowing in the last few years because we've gone from being valued at just over $1.7 billion in 2016 to being valued at over $16 billion by the end of 2022. And at the end of the day, I know that my experience, my 10 years of being in this industry is extremely valuable, but we do still live in a world where not just brands, but even general consumers are judging people and their influence based on their follower count. And when it's so fixated on that, I'm gonna be totally honest, it can sometimes be hard not to get down on yourself about it, especially when, like I said, I feel like I've been doing this for so long, and while I'm excited for my fellow creators, it is crazy to see people around me have this crazy growth and take off and do things that I haven't even gotten to do yet when I feel like I've really put in the time. But that's the nature of the industry that we live in. And I love my community. Like, no matter how small it is, every view and comment and subscriber that I have, I notice that, and it means so much to me. All of that to say, though, that I'm only human, and yes, even I have my days where I get myself into a comparison loophole that is not fun at all and definitely not productive. Let's get into 4 things that you can do right now to stop comparing, to get back to what you really want to be spending your time doing, creating. The first thing that I recommend doing is to remember your why and your goals as an influencer. In an industry that is so fast moving and so fixated on like counts, follower counts, all of those things, it's important to take a step back and remember why you started on this content creator journey in the first place. To remember that what's working for someone else right now might not necessarily work for you, and you might not even want it to work for you because maybe someone has seen crazy success on TikTok and they're going around telling all of their fellow content creators, TikTok is where it's at. I just gained 40,000 followers this week. Like, it is so amazing. It's so fast moving. Like, I love all the energy over there. And you're sitting there thinking, I hate posting on TikTok. TikTok is exhausting to me. And I love doing my podcast and having slow and steady growth. Like, maybe that's what's running through your mind. And so when someone's over there chirping about how excited they are about TikTok, in your head, if you're thinking, that sounds like the last thing I'd rather be doing this week, that might be a sign to you that you should stay in your own lane and remember your goals as a content creator. Because just because someone is seeing viral success right now or having a lot of attention on them at this exact moment, that might not necessarily be the best thing in the long run. If you know anything about me and this channel, you know that my primary goal with the content I create is to help you build an influencer business that is built for the long term and that works for you. So try not to get too caught up on what other people are saying you should be doing or you should be trying if it doesn't feel right to you. And again, just because someone is seeing a big burst in followers on TikTok, that might not necessarily bring them a return on investment the way that it would if they were creating longer form podcast content, longer form YouTube content, or a blog. Different things really work for different people. So take some time to reflect on your goals and your why and think about which platforms you really want to be spending your time on and which platforms make you feel the most excited to show up, create content, and engage with your community on there. If you're feeling a little lost right now in terms of which platform might be best for you or even what your why is as an influencer, if you feel like you've been comparing so much and you're just trying to get back to that starting point, I highly recommend checking out the quizzes inside of my free guide, The Influencer Launchpad. This is a free resource I've created for all of you. It's always linked down below in the description box, and both of those quizzes are actually included in the guide, finding the best posting platform for you and identifying your why and what type of influencer you are. So be sure to check those out. I hope they'll provide some clarity and make this feel a little less daunting as you attempt to reset and put comparison to the side. And another thing I'll add is, as you all know, I'm a big advocate of slow and steady growth. It's what got me to where I am right now. And I generally feel like a lot of the overnight successes that we see on these different platforms are actually not overnight successes. Oftentimes they are the result of years and years of work and grinding behind the scenes. I listened to a podcast interview not that long ago with Jenna Fisher from The Office, and she talked about working in Hollywood, taking on all these jobs where she didn't even have speaking roles and things like that, and then finally landing the role of Pam on The Office and having everything change from there. And everyone loves to think of that as her starting point, when in actuality, her starting point was years and years before that of just putting in the work, showing up to auditions, and then finally having something be the breakthrough. So the next time you see an overnight success, or you see someone who is just suddenly going viral or suddenly getting noticed or being featured in things, just know that 99% of the time that person put in as much work as you did and as much behind the scenes as it did to get them to that point that they're at now. My second suggestion for moving past comparison is to start talking to yourself the way you would talk to your best friend. Because I think about all the time how we are so willing to give others a break. We're so willing to forgive others, and sometimes we're so hard on ourselves. I absolutely go through periods like this, and wouldn't it all just be better if we talked to ourselves the way we would talk to our best friend if they were dealing with something? You guys probably know one of my content creator BFFs is my friend Caitlin, who's based in Chicago. And if Caitlin came to me and was like, Austin, I'm having the worst day, like this girl is doing what I'm doing, but she's doing it like so much better than me, like I am just really feeling unmotivated and discouraged, I would be like, Caitlin, you gotta snap out of it, girlfriend. I would literally be like, you are delivering this specific value because when you look back on your experience, what you've learned and what you've created for your business now, it's all gotten you to this specific point. And while this girl may be doing something similar to you, she's not doing it the way you're doing it. Like, you will always have that secret sauce. You'll always have your community that's attracted to you for these reasons, and you are gonna get through this. It's just a bad day, but you gotta buck up and you gotta keep going because the content's not going to create itself. So that is literally what I would say if Caitlin came to me with a issue where she was dealing with comparison or someone doing something better. And honestly, if I said all of that to myself, that's kind of what I would need to hear too, which is that no one can be you, only you can be you, and that's always going to be the edge that you have on other people and that unique thing that keeps people coming back to you specifically. And at the end of the day, dwelling on it is not going to solve the problem, and it's certainly not going to get you to where you want to be. So you're allowed to be upset and sit in your feels for a little bit, but then go for a walk or just do something creative and fun to get yourself out of that little funk and get back into what you are here to do, which is create content. I think that when you pretend that you're talking to your best friend, you are automatically a little bit kinder to yourself because you feel like you're talking to someone else. And it also allows you to be that one step removed and take a step back and say, is this really something that I should be stressing over right now? Because 9 times out of 10, I can promise it's not worth your time to be stressed out about. And on that note, my next step for dealing with comparison would be to really focus on what you can actually control. Because I think at the end of the day, there's always gonna be new app updates. There's always gonna be new creators coming up. And you can't control when someone starts creating content or if Instagram starts pushing a new feature that no one asked for, but they're gonna push anyway. I am talking about the recent announcement of having 5 links in your bio. Like, did anyone actually request that? Or is that just Adam Mosseri making his own decisions? So anyway, focus on what you can control. So let's say you're scrolling through Instagram and you see an influencer that you know post about a brand that you had wanted to work with, and you realize that that was a collaboration that they worked on together. So your first thought might be to sit there and think like, what? Oh my God, I would die to work with this brand. Like, why did they not notice me? Why didn't they pick me? Why did she get this deal and I didn't? And that is an easy entry into the comparison rabbit hole that you could end up spending like up to an hour in. So if you feel like you are missing out on brand deals or being passed up and other creators are getting opportunities, don't stress about it and sit down and compare yourself. Start to think about, well, what could I control? Like, actually, have I posted about that brand recently? Maybe I could give them a quick shout out on my Instagram stories, or maybe I actually need to restock the product because I ran out of it and I could post a little unboxing when the product comes in. Think about the things that you can control, because you can control how often you're posting about brands, what type of content you're creating. You can have that first initial touch point where you tag them on Instagram stories. Maybe they reply to you, and then that gives you a window to say, I really have been enjoying this product and I would love to talk to someone on your team about more ways to potentially partner together and get your product in front of my audience. Is there anyone on your influencer marketing team who you think would be open to a 15-minute intro call with me? Like, now suddenly you've made some steps towards what you want, which is to work with that brand. You already know that they partner with content creators and you've done something productive. You've created a piece of content instead of sitting around and dwelling and feeling bad about the fact that that brand didn't notice you. Maybe they didn't notice you because you haven't posted about them in a long time, even if you use them a lot. So that's something that can even inform your bigger picture content strategy, to say, you know, I really would love to do a product spotlight every Thursday on my Instagram stories. So if I'm a beauty creator, every Thursday I'm gonna say, today is Austen's favorites, and I'm gonna create this new Instagram story series where I shout out one beauty product I love every single Thursday. And just see what happens from there. I mean, it can spark so much more inspiration than just sitting there and moping because someone got a brand deal and you didn't. I promise there is so much of the pie to go around, and there is so much room for everyone to be successful in this industry. And that's another thing that I think is important to remember if you feel like you're comparing, is that someone else's success doesn't mean that there's less success for you. Even if it feels a little bit like that in the moment, in the long term, it is absolutely not true. Maybe you wish that you were making more money right now, and maybe you are experiencing what a lot of micro content creators are experiencing right now, which is that brands have been pulling back budgets a little bit. We are on the brink of a potential recession here in the US. There's economic slowdown no matter how you slice it, and so brands are being very, very cognizant of the money that they're spending. So if you were typically monetizing through brand partnerships, you might want to think about other ways to monetize outside of brand partnerships. So maybe some ideas are to incorporate consulting or teaching workshops in addition to brand partnerships. And the workshops don't need to be how to be an influencer, by the way. I know that's what I talk about and what some of my workshops involve, but if you are a fashion content creator, you could host a workshop about the best trends for summer 2023 and show people examples examples of how to style things, where to buy things, and really just put together a fun fashion-focused workshop if you want to. You could also think about creating and monetizing through a blog, because on a blog you can enable ads through an ad network, you can earn affiliate revenue through recommending products, and that's something that you own. You control the SEO backend that you do to make sure that your content's getting pushed out and is appearing in the Google search results, and that's something you can do independently of having a sponsored brand partner. And one more thing to add at this point of focusing on what you can control is you control what you consume. If you have been following any accounts on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, any of these places that every time you look at them, you just feel bad about, feel free to use that mute button and that unfollow button. If it's a bigger content creator who you've never met, like you're just following a superstar influencer type and their jet set lifestyle is just making you feel bad about sitting at home, just unfollow them. If it's someone who you know who is kind of getting to you, I definitely recommend using the mute feature. They will not be notified that you've muted them, but you will just have a chance to take a step back and not consume their content all the time if it's stressing you out or bringing up feelings of comparison or anxiety, and it's one step below unfollowing them and they wouldn't see that you've unfollowed them for any reason. So something to keep in mind if it's someone that you know whose content is rubbing you the wrong way. And I have even used the mute button with people who I'm friends with if I know they're going on a cool brand trip and I'm like, I feel like I'd be so jealous every time I check their Instagram. I'm just gonna mute them for a week and I'll come back later on. And it's not permanent. You can use it on and off as you need to, but just remembering that you control what shows up in your feed and you can control what you're seeing is a great way to make Instagram, TikTok, all of these platforms a better place for you to spend time when you're surrounding yourself by people who inspire you and you're kind of pushing aside things that make you feel bad or feel like you start to get those feelings of wanting to compare yourself, and it just is never a good use of your time. Okay, and the next thing I want to talk about is something that I'll just say experimenting with. I, for years, have thought maybe this was a little too woo-woo for me or just a little too, like, is that really necessary? But I've been testing it out for a few weeks and I've actually been finding it to be very helpful, so I thought I would share it in this video. And that is to write out some affirmations for yourself and say them out loud to yourself if you're ever in a moment of doubt. Now, you can call this what you want. You don't have to call it affirmations. You don't have to be manifesting things if you don't want to do that. If you want, even, you could just kind of call it like a reminder to yourself and make sure that you keep these somewhere where they're easily accessible. I actually added a few to my Notion page where I have all of my 2023 goals listed out and broken down by quarter. When I scroll down to the bottom of that page now, I have added a couple of affirmations that I've been kind of saying to myself or just reminding myself of any time that I feel myself slipping into a place where I am comparing. So I have a couple that I'm going to read to you, and again, these are just what works for me. Feel free to use these as inspiration. You could use these exact ones if you want to, or modify them. My friend Madison currently has been posting some affirmations, I think every Monday for content creators on her Instagram stories. So she is also creating this content and I've been loving seeing those pop up on my feed. That is something that I really enjoy consuming. So I'll link to Madison's Instagram down below in case you'd like to follow her and check out her content, which I recommend. But yeah, here are a few that I kind of came up with for myself. I'm okay with slow and steady growth because it allows me to build genuine connections and make continuous improvement to my content over time. I show up for my community and add value with each piece of content I create, whether it's sharing a quick beauty tip or educating influencers about usage rights. Not every post is going to get high reach or engagement, but if it helps even one person, it will be worth it. I know my value and I'm not afraid to say no to projects that don't serve me or partnerships that don't align with me, because when I say no, I'm leaving space for something better to fill it. And when things aren't working, I'm not afraid to experiment and try new things to find a better solution and flex my creative muscles. So there you go. That felt a little bit like reading a journal entry, but those are just some of the things that I keep in the back of my mind, keep in my Notion tab handy and ready to pull out if I'm ever having a moment of feeling, like I'm having a moment of self-doubt or comparing myself. And yeah, I honestly feel better already. And saying them out loud does help. You might feel like you are reciting a spell or like talking to yourself, but push past that awkwardness and actually say them out loud, and I promise you'll feel better after you do. Don't forget to check out my free guide, The Influencer Launchpad, so that you can take the quiz to find your why as an influencer and figure out what your best posting platform is to stay on your own track, stay in your own lane, stop comparing, and start focusing on what you need to do to really grow and expand your influencer business. And if you'd like to learn more about the 4 types of goals that I think every influencer should set, check out the Up Next recommendation on the screen and watch that next. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.